Okay, so in this video we are going to do a few example problems from the section 11.2. We're going to use the problems that are on the bottom of the notes template. So we'll start with question 1 and we'll work our way through. We're actually not, so I'll just scroll down in advance and show you. We're not doing population density, so we're not actually going to do number 9. So we'll do questions 1 through 8. And starting with 1 and 2, 1 and 2 are much more basic questions. So they're just saying find the area of the circle. So number 1, area of circle M, and number 2, area of circle R. Coincidentally, number 2 is actually the easier of the two to do, which is odd that they would put that as number 2. So let's start with that one. So the area of circle R is pi r squared. They're not asking you to do a sector. They're just saying the whole thing. So pi r squared, that would be pi times 7 squared, and 7 times 7 is 49, so 49 pi. And if they want you, and it's meters, so we'll put meters squared or square meters. If you want it exact, you leave it as 49 pi. If you're asked to round it or you need to round it, then you go to a calculator and you type in 49 pi and hit enter, and it will give you 153.9. So then we'll say 153.9 meters squared, and that would be our approximate. Again, those are, for our purposes, equally good. And it just depends on which way you're being asked to present it in a textbook or on a quiz, but they're equally good. Number 1, the reason it's harder on number 1 is they didn't actually give the radius, so they gave the diameter, which is 5 centimeters. That's that whole amount. And the only thing that means is you got to cut it in half to get the radius. So our area is still pi r squared, but now it's going to be pi times 2.5 squared. And 2.5 squared is just a slightly harder number to do than 7. In fact, if we go over here, if we do 2.5 times 2.5 or 2.5 squared, means the same thing, you would get 6.25. So our answer there would be 6.25 pi, and that would be the exact answer. Again, if we want the decimal, we're just going to take and multiply our 6.25 by pi and hit enter, and then we get 19.6. And so again, that's equally good to 19.6. And here it looks like we're talking about centimeters. I keep forgetting my units, so centimeters squared. So again, just to highlight the area formula and then either using an exact or rounded to the nearest tenth, or if you were asked to round to something else, you would just go to that many decimals. Those are the easier questions in this section. The more challenging questions are these, so 3 through 8 that we'll spend our time with. Some of them a little more challenging than others, but we're going to start talking about sectors of circles as well. So if what we're looking for here on 3 through 6 are not giving us a diagram, we have to interpret what it's doing with words, and it helps you to draw a picture. Go ahead and draw a picture. But here they're asking for an area of a circle with a diameter of 1.8 inches. Again, what that means is the radius is half of that. So our area is going to be pi times r squared, which would be pi times, here it's 1.8 inches, so half of that, if you divide that by 2, is 0.9. And if you don't believe that, you can go in and, of course, calculate it and do 1.8 divided by 2, or I shouldn't say if you don't believe it, if you're not sure, you get your 0.9. And then what we're going to say is, okay, well, what is 0.9 squared? Well, 0.9 squared would be 0.81. And then if we were asked to do exact, we would say, okay, well, that's 0.81 pi. But we can also then just take and say, okay, let's multiply that 0.81 by pi, and we got 2.544. So we'll say 2.5. And that means we've got 2.5, and we're going with inches, so we'll go inches squared. Second one, diameter of a circle. So again, here, this is where it starts getting trickier. Diameter of circle with an area of 10 feet. They're telling you what the area is, and they're asking you to work backwards. So they're actually giving us the area on this one. In our area equation, it's pi r squared. So if we know, or what we're after is the diameter, but we know the area, we're saying 10 equals pi r squared. Now we need to solve and find the diameter. Very different feeling question. So to do that, we've got to get r all by itself. So I'm going to take and divide both sides by pi. So 10 over pi, and then pi r squared over pi. When you divide both sides by pi, the pi's on the right-hand side cancel out, 10 divided by pi, that's just a numeric value. So we'll do 10 divided by pi, and we'll hit enter. And we've got 3.18. I'm just going to leave that decimal sitting in there, but I'll write it as 3.2. So we'll round it in here. So 3.2 equals r squared. Then to get r, I need to square root both sides. So I'm going to square root 3.2. I'm going to square root r squared. When you square root r squared, you get r. When you square root 3.2, let's see. I want to square root. The reason I left this in here is I'm going to go second squared, so that gets me my square root. And then you can type in 3.2 if you want, or your calculator knows how to hang on to the most recent answer. And every calculator has this little answer option. So then you don't have to retype it. And it will take whatever your previous answer is and put it in there for you. And then our answer is 1.784. And if we were to round to the nearest tenth, it would be 1.8. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say my radius is 1.8. That's the radius. We're after the diameter. So we need to double that. So you need to go 2 times that amount. Well, if you do 2 times that amount, so let's go back to our calculator. I'm going to go times by 2. Hit enter. I get 3.56, or rounded would be 3.6. So then our diameter is 3.6 feet. So again, much more challenging, but you're still using the same area equation. It's just in this case, they gave you the actual area versus giving you the diameter or the radius. Next one, number 5, we want the radius of a circle with an area of 65 square centimeters. I'm actually going to change colors here just to make it clear that I'm doing a different problem. So again, area is pi r squared. They're telling us the area is 65, so I'm going to say 65 equals pi r squared. And I'm going to go through this same set of steps that I did over here. And actually, I'll put that and I'll keep it in this black color so we can tell which one's which. I'm going to divide both sides by pi. On the right, that means the pi's will cancel out. On the left, I've got 65 divided by pi, which is going to be some decimal. So I've got 65 divided by pi. Hit enter. And what is that? 20.7. So I'm going to go over here. That's 20.7. And then I need to square root both sides, just like we did in the red, to get r all by itself. And the only difference, actually this one's slightly easier, the only difference is that we're after the radius. So because I'm after the radius, I'll be done after this step. And then I'm going to do second square root. And again, I'm going to use that little answer option, just it's less typing, but it actually is more exact as well because it doesn't put the rounded amount in there, it puts the whole amount in there. And my answer is 4.54, 548, so technically 55, which would be 4.6. That's a little tricky in terms of rounding. So on this one, technically the 8 rounds up the 4 to a 5, and then the 5 rounds up the 5 to a 6. So this one actually would be 4.6 if you were to go through the kind of grade school rounding that you would have learned to do. I don't want that to be the hang up on this problem. So 4.6 centimeters. But it's important to remember that, yeah, you learned how to round, and yes, that is how rounding works. Number 6, area of a circle with a radius of 6.1 yards. So here they're actually going back to the easiest way to ask the question. The area is pi times 6.1 squared. And we're after the area. So we just plug in pi. So pi times 6.1 squared. And we can actually type that whole thing into the calculator. So there's our pi, there's our r, and there's our squared. Hit enter and we get 116.9. So 116.9 square yards, or yards squared, would be our answer. So there we've got number 3 worked out, and number 4, 5, and 6. All of those are just different ways in which you can use the area equals pi r squared. Numbers 7 and 8 are the areas of the sector. So these are a little trickier. Here they want the area of the sector formed by PQR, the shaded area. And again, the thought process there being we're going to get the area of the whole circle. That's pi r squared. And let's actually do that. They tell us the radius is 4. So let's go pi times 4 squared. So that's going to be 16 pi. And as a decimal, let's see, 16 pi. We know 16. And where's our pi? There's our pi. Hit enter and we've got 50.3 if we round. So the area is 50.3. And again, just so everybody remembers, and I just want to drive this home, 16 pi is actually the exact amount, 50.3 is an estimate or a rounded amount. Those are the area of the whole thing. And then what we're saying is, you know what, we just want a percentage of that. And the way you get that percentage is you take 140 degrees divided by 360. That's the percentage of the circle that you're using. That's the one main new idea in this section. That's what we're after. So there's our percentage times our whole thing. So percentage times the whole thing. 140 over 360 times 16 pi. So 140 divided by 360. And again, that's going to give us a decimal, which is a percent. So we're talking about 38% of the circle. And then we're going to go times 16 pi and hit enter. And that's going to give us 19.54. Again here, 547. So the 7 rounds up the 4 to a 5. And then that 5 would round up this one to a 6. So it'd actually be 19.6 if we're tracking through with our rounding skills. So that would be our area of our sector would be 19.6, and in this case it'd be centimeters squared. And again, if your only hang up is 19.5 or 19.6, just smile and be happy you understand that we're doing this percentage times the whole. But really, you should be able to track with that whole rounding idea. And it is a super small idea, but the idea is just you need to keep rounding up. You have to look at what each one impacts the other that comes next. So again, that 7 is going to hit that 4 and make it a 5. That 5 is going to hit this one and make it a 6. So last one that we'll look at is number 8. So they want the area of the whole circle. So again, I'm going to switch over colors here one more time. And we want the area of the whole circle. So this entire circle of y. And notice on this one, it's feeling a bit different than number 7, and it is. They're actually giving you the pi piece. So they're telling you that little pi piece has got an area of 4.1 square feet. So we want the area of the whole circle. And then we're told we have this 25 degrees. So this is actually a much higher level problem solving one that we got to do. So we're going to say, okay, well, usually what I would do is I would take 25 degrees over 360 and I would multiply by the total area of the circle. And then that would get me in my answer, which is our area of our sector. So again, percentage times total equals sector. That's the equation that we're using. That's all we're using. It's not a new equation. And in this case, what we're after is this piece right here. We know we have the area of the sector. That's 4.1. So I'm going to put that over on the right-hand side. That's right here. 25 over 360, that's just some decimal. So let's figure out that some decimal. 25 divided by 360. 0.069444444. So let's see. 0.069. So I'm just going to write it out here. 444 times our area. And what we're after, again, is the area of the whole thing. We want that. So to get that all by itself, we have to divide 4.1 by that decimal. So I'm going to divide both sides by the 0.069444. And I'm going to do that over here too. So again, it feels different. It is different. It's a harder problem to solve. We're going to take our sector and we're going to divide it by that decimal. And again, instead of having to type that whole thing in, I really would encourage you to use this answer option that all calculators have. And then you don't have to retype anything. And it will just immediately chip out an answer for you. And in this case, it's 59.04, but we'll round, so we'll say 59. So that means the area of the whole circle is 59. So, and what was our units on this one? We're talking about feet. So 59 square feet. And that's it. That gets us our area of the whole circle. Again, we're using the same formula. So percent times total equals sector. The only difference is they gave us the sector. So you put that one in. The percent you find by doing the 25 over 360. That's the 0.06944. And then the area of the thing we want, which is double underlined here, the way you get it by itself is divide both sides by the 0.06944. And that gets us our answer, which is 59 feet squared. And that's the end of the examples for this lesson. And now you've got some practice and some homework to do.